The ever anticipated development series returns for another week of slicing, dicing, pumping, rubby, overtakes for glory and heartbreak. Today, we welcome you to the Daytona International Speedway. It's located in the spring break capital of the world, Daytona Beach, Florida, the United States of America. It hosts round 5 of the Aussie Mix and Fix GT Development League with all coverage on ApexRacingTV. The track details are up on screen. Jonathan Simon in the commentary booth alongside Sam Fitzpatrick with Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. Sam, welcome back to another round. We're here at we've left Canada, back to the virtual US, a track with 31-degree banking across the oval turns, 18 across the tri-oval on the start-finish straight. We're just ready to begin the formation lap. And the racing action here with a huge field of 53 drivers. Well, it's not going to disappoint for sure.
Absolutely. We saw a terrific round at Mosport last time out, and I imagine we're going to see the same thing here. Got a bit of an issue on the start, seemingly. A couple of drivers not pulling away. They are now getting away, but a little bit of contact amongst the drivers on the grid. So hopefully not too much damage picked up for those drivers. Of course, GTE and GT3 cars out there today, and it is going to have some fantastic action over these two 20-minute races. Oh, sorry, no, this long 1 hour 30 race. I'm not quite sure, but we'll wait and see.
Oh, what's going on at the front? Atmore and Hewitt have taken each other out. Is that supposed to be? It's been a grid rebuild. Okay, so there's been something wrong. I was about to say, I'm like, did the leaders just intentionally pick each other out? So it looks like we have some issues right now, and there's going to have to be a grid rebuild, and there's definitely something going wrong with the gridding of the driver. So Sam, already a bizarre start to round 5 of the series, but I got too excited there for a second.
Yes, I was very confused. A few drivers disconnecting from the server, a few drivers not wanting to get away from the dummy grid, and just a few settings wrong, I think, on the for this race. So we'll have to disconnect from this server. We'll try again, and well, I'm sure we'll get back underway in the next quarter of an hour or so. But still, 2 races to go, and we're still very excited. The tension just keeps on building.
Certainly does. One thing I have to say is, while we sort all this out, we'll talk about the track details. So it's a 5.5-kilometer circuit, 3.5 miles, depending on your units of choice, anti-clockwise. Not that that really matters too much as a driver. It just puts stress on those right-hand side tires, despite yes, it does. So there's 7 left turns, 5 to the right. So more left turns there are right turns, so we'll stress those right-hand tires a little bit more. But I've seen plenty of races here, Sam, at Daytona where the draft is the critical aspect to maintaining your lead, maintaining yourself in those lead battles, and just trying to pass drivers ahead, of course.
Yeah, definitely. It's so frustrating when on the opening lap, maybe you pick up a little bit of damage or you just get disconnected from the drivers ahead, because all of a sudden they're just easing away from you, and you know that you're faster than many of the drivers ahead, but they're just easing away from you because they're getting drafts from the drivers ahead. So it's all about the racecraft, this circuit. These drivers have done so many laps around this place in preparation, of course, for the Daytona 24 Hours, one of the biggest events on iRacing, probably the second biggest special event we have on iRacing. And yeah, so if you just get disconnected a little bit, then you're really going to have a tough race. Fortunately for these guys, the fact that you got 20 minutes per race, you're guaranteed to have a bit of action up ahead. And so there's certainly going to be lots of battles, maybe a few incidents as well. So the drivers will be able to profit from that one. But it should still be a fantastic evening of racing. And yeah, this Daytona circuit, an absolutely fantastic host for round 5 of the championship.
I also add the track hosts plenty of overtaking opportunities. Turn 1 is an opportunistic one. It's not the best overtaking spot on the circuit. I think the run into the chicane on the back straight, my opinion, is your best overtaking spot. The reason I don't like turn number 1, Sam, is that it's so much easier to defend than it is to overtake at that corner, just from the way that the corner is set up basically because you have to brake on an angle, trail braking is involved, and it's just such a tight entry into that left-hander into the first sector.
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone saw the World GT Championship last season, going into that turn one, I think we probably had about 20 spins, and amongst some very high quality drivers just struggling with the braking down. Of course, you can imagine going for an overtake into that corner, how narrow it is, as you were saying. It is extremely risky. Also, if you get the move done at the bus stop, you can kind of just get the car behind stopped on the apex and really get a good run out of that corner and break the draft a little bit. But well, even if you do get ahead at one of these corners, it's so difficult to break that draft. As long as you're staying within about 0.6 of a second or so, and these guys are so evenly matched, that is usually the case. So you've really got to be a terrific driver and have quite an advantage to break that draft. And yeah, not the easiest track to overtake round, certainly. There's not exactly an easy place to overtake. It's always going to be a bit of a struggle up there.
100%. So, of course, thanks to our sponsors for the series, Century Batteries Lismore and the Race Management Service. RMS55.com.au is the website to visit. Plenty of rounds coming up for the rest of the season, of course, Sam, on Apex Racing TV after we broadcasted the 4th round of the series for the first time here last round at Mosport. The series loves us so much. We'll be bringing you all the action up until round 12 at Road Atlanta on the 1st of September. I'm excited now. Our Sunday nights in Australia and your Sunday mornings are occupied.
Absolutely. And on Apex Racing TV, not going to lie, we've been wanting a series on a Sunday. And also, we've been wanting a few Aussie series as well. So we certainly do massively thank AMF for allowing us on board. And yeah, of all the series to broadcast on, this is a pretty awesome one. So a lot of thanks to those guys for giving us this opportunity. And well, hopefully we won't disappoint. And of course, the good thing is that when you've got 60 odd drivers signing up for every race, it makes it a hell of a lot easier for us guys. We certainly do prefer some action-packed racing rather than kind of small grids and not much action. So it should be an awesome championship. And yeah, maybe even future series. Although, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself now, but just to do this series is absolutely fantastic.
You should race in the series.
I could, yeah.
You could, you should.
Yeah, I will do. If I get a moment
We'll do it
of
together.
time, I will do it.
It'll be called the Apex Racing TV team.
Yeah.
Actually, that will be copyright, but we'll come up with a name to represent us both. And surely Scott Newton will jump on board and be like, "Hey, I want to be part of the team, of course," and we'll get a team of 3.
I mean, we could race and commentate at the same time. I've heard people do that, and I don't think it works out brilliantly usually, but it's certainly a different perspective.
Go, green flag.
Well, I'm still in the server, and funnily enough, it just received the green flag. Now, to let everybody know, there's no one in the server. We've had a technical issue with the gridding, so the race will go up in a few moments' time. But, mate, if somebody just jumps in there, and they'll be able to lead a couple of laps, just without anybody knowing. The session is, jokes aside, the new session's just about going up, Sam, and we'll be ready to get going for another race here at Daytona. And it's the field again. This is the development series for GT. So, drivers coming in, the I rating of the field, the average is around your 2K mark. So, I mean, your strongest driver today is at 4K. You got a couple of 2.9Ks, some drivers in 1Ks as well. So, I mean, having a fixed setup series that's got race control, driving standards are on display. It's being broadcasted. There's a lot of pressure on these guys, and it's also a good step up to those more elite GT series. And this series certainly proves a good proving ground for these up-and-coming talents and drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this follows the same schedule as ILMS, or maybe takes into consideration what ILMS does, because this is the track which ILMS was racing around this week. I think it might take into account maybe IMSA and ILMS. So these drivers would have had a bit of experience as well around this track, perhaps earlier on in the week. And of course, setups, it's always a controversy, isn't it? fixed setups or open setups. Some people say it's more fair to have open setups. Some disagree. But the fact that you know that it is purely down to the driver when you have a fixed setup, it does help a lot mentally. And I realize, you know, some sets prefer other drivers to some drivers. But, you know, just having that mentality that you know that there's no advantage for anyone else, that they haven't managed to find like a loophole perhaps with the setup, the other drivers. It's always fantastic, and it really does kind of make you honest about yourself to yeah, really improve your times. And of course, we've got such a big field. Everyone's guaranteed a good race out there. You know, whether you're 1.5K, whether you're 5K, you know, it's still going to be great fun because there's going to be drivers of equal pace too, which is fantastic.
Certainly. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back shortly with the race as the technical issues are all sorted. Don't miss it. You're watching round 5 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League on Apex Racing TV.
Yeah, I'm just loading it at the moment, but I'm ready to go for that, to be honest.
Welcome back to round 5 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League. All coverage on Apex Racing TV, of course. So we've got into our new server, and the technical issues will be sorted manually, Sam. There's been some gridding issues with the drivers, so we're going to begin the race, and then race will unofficially begin on green, if that makes sense. The grid will be sorted, and then race control will give the okay over the radio to when the drivers can pedal away and begin the race once the grid is sorted. Not sure if I explained that clearly.
You did a good effort. It's always very difficult. But yeah, just some gridding issues. There is some. We use race management service, which honestly is a really useful app, and it's rapidly improving. And it is of great use to leagues like this with multi-class field who do reverse grids and stuff like that. And so it's certainly a great use of those for these guys. But yeah, just a few bugs with it currently, but I'm sure they'll address it nice and quickly. But yeah, just reorganizing the grid now so that it accurately reflects the qualifying positions. I didn't realize that this was actually an endurance race. We do have occasional endurance races in this championship. We've also got an endurance race later on in the season at Silverstone. That'll be the new Silverstone, I believe, and that'll actually be it. So just got this one and Silverstone until the end of the season for endurance events. 90 minutes in that case, not the 2 20-minute races we have instead. And so it's a bit of a different type of race, isn't it now, Jonathan? It for these drivers, or certainly for us, completely different mindset. All of a sudden, you've gone from 20 minutes and a reverse grid where it's absolutely fast and rapid driving. You've got to get everything that you possibly can out of the car into a 90-minute race where the intensity is a little bit lower, and it's all about preserving your car, especially around a circuit like this, where, of course, getting a little bit of damage can be so costly. It's more about just protecting your car, keeping yourself in a decent position, making sure that you got the right strategy. And I think that's a good element of this series, the fact that you got to kind of use both of those mindsets in across the season.
Certainly, and the drivers now doing their best to just reorder the grid and listen to race control. So this race will, of course, it's already unofficially begun, but the time will tick, and pace car's pulled in. Yeah. So we've got this correct. So now the grid will be sorted. Race control will give the all clear for the race to progress, and then we will finally go green for round 5 of the series, which, can I say, of course, this is brilliant by race control right now to sort out these technical troubles with such organization. Is that superb as I've seen any race control in a series. I don't think this might be the best that's ever been done in my iRacing career that I've seen.
Absolutely, and it takes a lot of cooperation from the drivers as well, doesn't it? Because there's got to be good communication amongst everyone. Just one person not getting the message, and all of a sudden it gets a little bit difficult. But thankfully, they've sorted it out in very difficult circumstances, and certainly a lot of credit to the drivers. They are going quite slowly out at the moment at the drivers, and this will cause the tyres to cool down a little bit, I believe. On the formation lap, the tyre temperature just doesn't change, but seeing that we're technically under green flag, everything will be cooling down a little bit. I'm just trundling around, trying to get everyone in order for the start of this race. And it'll be interesting to see when the race leader goes, actually, whether there'll be a set point. He could probably go now, and I don't think he'd get a penalty for it. So, or whether he'll go just at the point where they cross the start-finish line. So, quite difficult for Stephen Lattimore out there to sort this one out. But him and his teammate on the front row of the grid, hopefully everything will go quite civil into turn 1.
They're still sorting out the grid at the back, so the leader's definitely not going to pull away. But you hit the nail on the head there. Which is the tire temperatures, and that's something that is, let me tell you, that could cause such a chaotic start right now. But I'm listening to Ryan Kolstad from Race Control. I have that channel open in my ears, and he's just speaking. He's pretty much yelling the grid out one by one. When I say yelling, he's poised and poised and controlled as he says it. But you can see the drivers at the back of the pack right now. Where is Stephen Burgess just hanging back here, but there we go. They're setting into formation. Two classes of cars. Again, we have your GTEs and GT3s. Fixed setup, as we know, Sam. The GTE grid is sorted. The race will begin shortly as the back end of your grid is being sorted. And I have to say right now, it shouldn't be too long until we go green.
Yep, Lattimore bringing it round turn 4, NASCAR turn 4. And it's his decision when to put his foot down. Everyone will have to react to him. And we've got 90 minutes of racing here at Daytona International Speedway coming up for us in just a few moments.
So Ryan Kolstad has said they're ready to go green. Stephen Lattimore will begin the race for your GTEs. For your GT3s, we'll flick to that start later on. It'll be Matt Allison starting from pole position. The grid all sorted now. We're ready to go for just under 90 minutes of racing action. Here they go through the final corner. Let's have a listen and let's wait for them to go green and floor it. Lattimore still waiting. Round 5 here of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League from Daytona is green as Stephen Lattimore floors it for 90 minutes of racing.
Yeah, Lattimore executing those first few corners very impressively. And just making a bit of a gap over the drivers behind, a little bit of contact between 3rd and 4th position. I think that was Whitaker and Chambers going down into turn 1, but Lattimore got it all sorted out and straight away trying to break that jump, not quite creating the gap that he wants coming out of the first complex of corners there.
And back to your GT3s, Matt Allison leads the field heading into turn 1, and it looks pretty well. All the drivers are in formation to begin this race right now. Bit of a tap behind by Paul Nichols on Alexander Newton, and Newton's in that light blue green 113 car, and he's under attack now. Now one car slow there through the middle part of the lap, but apart from that, a very clean start by your GT3s as well.
Fantastic to see from those guys. Very composed driving from everyone on that first lap. Can be such a big issue at Daytona. I was seeing an opportunity to make up a few positions, particularly into that hairpin on the opening lap. But so far, not too much contact. And we should be in for a good day of racing here. Nice bouncing right now between Whitaker and Chambers as they go on to the pit straight, or the pit curve, whatever it is, as they loop round now very close as well for I think that's Clements just behind as well. And Clements is going to try to go round the outside into turn 1. The BMWs almost contact again. I think that's 2 laps in a row now where Whitaker and Chambers have hit each other going into turn 1, but once again it doesn't turn out horrendously. But nice driving there, and fortunately for those guys, they're not losing each other too much and they're keeping up nicely with the race leader.
Chambers now right behind Whitaker, and these two, of course, swap positions because Chambers was initially ahead for a moment's time. They head into turn 5, and going deep into the corner is Stephen Lattimore. Pit lane is open as race control confirms at this moment in time, and look at this run that Whitaker's going to have out of the exit. Now I'm forgetting Justin Wallace in that 913 car. Who's going to have the draft heading to the bus stop chicane?
At the moment, all of them just about a few tenths of a second away from one another. They're all getting the draft on one another. It's a bit of a DRS train, as we often see in real life or in sim racing in the MP4-30. Everyone just having the same advantage down the straight, but you can see now Whitaker getting so close, and that is remarkable how close he could stay through that bus stop section. So difficult to hit your turning in point, so difficult to hit the apex just right, but you can see the driver ahead just getting on the power a little bit earlier, and they're all closing in on one another. Lattimore's going to be under pressure from his teammate going into turn 1, as they're all starting to stretch out a little bit now. Chambers and Clements for Pulse Racing and Mach 1 Esports respectively, dropping back a little bit as we see side by side for second, third round the outside goes Whitaker, It's going to be a very brave move, but he's a little bit offline, a little bit off camber, but he's managed to keep his car around the outside. Now he'll have the inside for the next hairpin, which is definitely the line that you want to take. Nothing that Whitaker can do, nothing that Wallace could do there, and Whitaker moves up into second place.
There's one car off the grass there in the middle part of the lap. I'm not sure who that was. It was in your GT3s, GTEs, excuse me. Unsure who that driver was. It was difficult to see. And have a look now with Justin Wallace. He doesn't want to lose another position. Scott Chambers behind. Here they head through out past turn 6 and now on to this 31-degree banked oval at Daytona. This is turns 1 and 2 at Daytona around the oval, home of the famous Daytona 500. And look at the track temps too, Sam. Something we haven't spoke about as we see the driver of Whitaker etch closer and closer to Lattimore here. 22-degree track temp, very cold, very grippy. 9:30 p.m. local time, and the more this race progresses, I'm assuming the colder this track will get.
Yeah, should do. Might even get down to 18 degrees track temperature, which is the absolute coldest it can get, which is a slight thing I'd like iRacing to improve a bit because, you know, going to Silverstone in December and it being 18 degrees track temperature, not too reflective, as I think we've got side by side between the two race leaders, Lattimore and Whitaker, going on just in front. And pulling ahead is Whitaker, and into the lead. Can he make it? Trying to do the same move as he did on the last lap, but Lattimore too strong and holds on to the race lead. But Whitaker is a man on a mission right now.
And on the defensive is Stephen Lattimore. He understood that Whitaker was going to have a slice up the inside at that international horseshoe, but thought better of it. And now these 3, 4, Chambers a bit too far behind, but the top 3 now still in a nice little scrap, separated by half a second of these 3 cars as they trail break, heading in to turn 5 in this first sector. Back to your GT3s for the moment, because Matt Allison has lost the lead to Scott Gamble in the Audi. So Matt Allison in a BMW is finally lost the lead. And that is these are the first few corners that he hasn't had P1 in this race.
Yeah, it was dominant as well at Mosport. I believe you won both races at Mosport. Correct me, someone on the chat if I've got that slightly wrong, but he was very strong there, no doubt. But Scott Gamble getting past, but it is so close at the moment amongst those top drivers.
And Gamble almost spun there, heading out of turn 6, the left-hander. And look at this, it gives Matt Allison a run around the outside. The problem now is the straight line speed of the Audi that Matt Allison has to deal with. He's going to tuck back into the draft, but this is going to be a difficult pass heading into the bus stop. So almost a gift in disguise, because it ruined the momentum Matt Allison would have had he had the draft the entire time. But I guess he's going to focus on the exit out of the bus stop, and he's going to try and make a move into the ever difficult turn 1 passing zone.
And currently the drivers who will be enjoying this battle are all the guys just behind Chris Dale, Galenzi and Mulqueen as well. All the drivers, we've still got a good chance at winning this race. You can see that a big pack of 5 drivers near the front. We've got side by side for 3rd position just behind. They don't want to lose each other too much time. They want to desperately stay in that tight as long as possible. And I think they're going to sort it out. No, they are going to go side by side. Having a half move there was Galenzi past Chris Dale. And now he is going to get the move done side by side through the opening couple of corners. And Galenzi, Galenzi just pulling ahead there.
Does, most certainly. Good stuff from Galenzi, and it started this race around the top, of course, and he's climbing his way. Well, he's trying to reel in the leaders of Scott Gamble and Matt Allison in your GT3s. Gamble again struggling through the first sector. And Allison all over the rear end. Is he going to slice it up the inside, possibly heading into 6? Thinks better of it. He knows that Gamble is struggling mid-corner, struggling on the exits. Now here's Matt Allison's best chance, Sam, to reclaim the lead. He's going to tuck into the draft, but again, Sam, he's just going to deal with that tough straight line speed of the Audi. Yeah,
he doesn't want to pop out too early. If anything, he might even have to lift off down that initial parts of the straights and just wait until he can pull alongside going into the bus stop, but just lifting out there. A great lap so far for Galenti. You can see Galenti absolutely charging up to these guys, and he's managed to make up about half a second on this lap. So Galenti was under pressure for his podium spot just a few moments ago. Just waltzes up to these guys, and well, he's going to have a chance at second place, maybe even going down into turn 1. And also fantastic to see 3 different types of car in the first 3 positions.
Here's Galenti in the Merc. He's searching for a move up the inside here of Matt Allison. And how about this into the trail, into the braking zone. Now they all released the gas pedal at the brake pedal at different points. Galenti had 2 braking phases through there. Allison, same. Campbell had the most uneventful braking zone. He hugs the inside of the International Horseshoe, and he's almost helped around as he made a mistake yet again. So Scott Gamble is struggling right now in the lead. He definitely hasn't found his consistency, and there should certainly be front-end damage to that Mercedes of Sal Galenti. And now almost contact between Allison and Galenti in the braking zone as they're trying to fight for each other in these early stages for that lead advantage in your GT3s.
And now Allison drops way down. He's down into 5th position, trying to fight against Mole Queen, just dipping a wheel onto the grass. And once you do that, you're going to lose a lot of time. Thankfully, he just about stayed ahead of Mole Queen. But Allison having a tough time out of it because only a few laps ago he was in the race lead, remember. But now he's down into 4th place. But Gamble not looking too convincing at the moment in that Audi. And yeah, for 90 minutes, if he keeps on making minor mistakes like that, he's not going to get very far in this race.
Through the bus stop they go. And Scott Gamble, no, he's maintained the lead, but he's under pressure by another driver now of Sal Galenti in that 3-2-2 car. There's Galenti going to go right, left. Alex for the outside line. 18 degrees of banking across this tri-oval for the front stretch, but that Audi just has immense straight line speed. It's this first sector where Scott Gamble will struggle. Now we'll have a look as Galenti's had a poor exit there through turn 1. He's just had some mid-corner oversteer, and that's cost him so much, hasn't it? And now Robert Crisdale wants a piece of P2.
Yeah, so just constantly making small mistakes are these drivers, and it's difficult to tell who the strongest one out of these guys is because one seems to get up ahead of steam and then just seems to back into the other drivers. You can see the lead now that Gamble has over the rest of these guys, about 1.5 seconds. So a quick change as Allison makes a move. And that was very simple past Mole Queen there. And starting to recover those positions. So good is that BMW on the brakes, and it can really tell going through that middle part of the lap, just gets it stopped on a dime every time.
Sorry, Sam, to interrupt. The lead for your GTEs is about to change as Lattimore is under attack. The driver of Chris Whitaker, they're alongside each other heading into turn 1 now. The 2 Ferraris in a nice little scrap for your overall lead. Stephen Lattimore's led comfortably all event, and he maintains the lead. That inside line in the braking zone is going to work wonders for Stephen Lattimore. I saw it in when we're broadcasting the Rick Motec Extreme Motorsports Rick Motec Sports Car Series, Sam. A few weeks ago, they're at Daytona, and the inside line just worked so well for Aero Nom in that race, and that's where the driver of Robert Hartley just didn't do anything about it. So again, we could see this today where the inside line in the braking zone at turn 1 is going to work wonders.
Yeah, I think so. And as the race goes on as well, you can often get some marbles out on the outside of the circuit or wherever drivers haven't been racing, and so that effect could actually kind of exponentially grow as the race goes on. So keep an eye out on that one. Turn 1, just such a difficult corner. Some drivers really like it as the challenge. Personally, I despise it, but certainly, it's a good test for these drivers, especially in a 90-minute race like this, to constantly get that braking right.
Oh, look at the GT3s. Crisdale's run deep into turn 5. He's just allowed a perfect gap for Matt Allison to climb back into your podium positions, albeit still over an hour away from this race finishing. And now through the exit, Matt Allison goes. He's going to have to deal with the ever classy Mercedes up ahead. Now, this could be perfect, I reckon, Sam, for Scott Gamble in the lead as now Allison creeps closer and closer to a pass here, because he's got less pressure on him and he could make less mistakes, of course, just because no one's all over the rear end of him, as we see Allison doesn't go for the move into the bus stop and rather elects for a good exit and good draft out of the bus stop.
Yeah, it could be a good advantage and takes the pressure off him. Even if he does make a small mistake, you know, he's still going to be in the race lead. And he doesn't have those constant headlights glaring down at him into every single corner. Certainly got to take advantage of this whilst they're fighting, because all these guys think that they're faster than one another, so they want to have track position. Is he going to look to the inside? This one had a half opportunity there. Did Allison, decided against it. And Galenti keeps that place, but he's really struggling coming out of turn one every single time. But just covering the inside into all of these corners, that's such a narrow circuit, there's very little that the car behind can do.
The first sector, they go, oh, I see a spinner at turn one, and that's in your GT3s. It looks like, it's hard to see who it is there, but I definitely saw a spinner at the exit of turn one. They've got going already, and that's not what you want to see at this stage of the race, of course. And we don't want that race of attrition. Have a look at your lead in the GTEs. This is entertaining. We see 3 wide across the main straight. Getting closer and closer. Attamore remains in the lead. Whitaker behind in third. Justin Wallace is sandwiched between the both of them. Wallace now trying to search for the opposite lines to Stephen Lattimore. I like this racing so far, Sam. It's a game of chess, isn't overtaking?
Yes, definitely, though. It's so evenly matched. It's all about just positioning your car. None of them can seemingly pull away from one another. And so, yes, it's creating an absolutely awesome battle out in the lead of that GTE class. And that's more, yeah, of course, an advantage for race owners. I want to say race owners. That's how I read. Race owners.
Like race on Australia? That makes no sense.
Oh,
but you get what
okay.
I mean.
Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you for that.
You Brits. You Brits.
We don't like culture over on this island. But yeah, they've got an advantage, of course. 1-2. Whitaker by himself for MT1 Motorsports. And so, you know, they've got to work as a team, give each other a tow, of course. That could give them an advantage when it comes to the pit stops later on. By the way, the drivers are limited to... I'm desperately trying to look what the... what is the maximum fuel usage? I don't think there's a limit on fuel, and so it'll be a one-stopper. These drivers can go about... The GTEs will go about 55 minutes, and the GT3s 60 minutes, I would have thought. And of course, when you got the tow, it rapidly increases how far you can go. You can go an extra couple of laps, which could be the deciding factor in this one. So they've got to work as a team, basically the Racernos drivers. And Chris Whitaker struggling to keep with these guys, all of a sudden falling about 7/10 of a second behind.
There was a 50% fuel limit for your super sprint rounds. And in terms of these endurance races, don't have the info on that, but I don't think there is, as Sam confirmed, don't think there is a fuel limit for any of these drivers or any of these cars. So it should be a one-stop race then, I'm assuming, Sam. Don't see any benefits to a two-stop, especially in such cold conditions. I mean, track temp's gone up 1 degree, and that's expected because there's so many cars out there on the racetrack lapping away, but I don't think tires are really going to be the issue. It's more fuel they got to focus on, and with all the drafting involved, it'll be a simple one-stop.
Yes, I'm pleased that I can have some kind of relative expert analysis and say that they probably won't change tires in this race. I desperately hope they don't, at least, otherwise I'm going to look like a bit of an idiot. But I don't think they will change tires. The track temperature, as you said, is incredibly cool. And in these GTE cars, you have to take the tires separate to the fuel, so you add about 26 seconds to your pit stop time, and that's not usually worth it. If this was 2 hours, it would be right on the limit. We saw that in the World GT last season. But 1.5 hours should be okay for these guys. Nice battle right now between Kenneth Latter and Nathan Anderson. This is the battle for 5th and 6th place, side by side between the Porsche and the Ferrari. Anderson trying to get the move done, and is Latter just going to lift off? Neither of them lifting off. They desperately want to get track position. Just interested behind is Paul Wood as well. And Anderson's going to try to muscle his way all the way around the outside. This has worked decently in the GT3s, but not for the GTE driver there. And Anderson drops back into the clutches of Wood now.
Guys, and he's going to be careful that Paul Wood doesn't sneak up the inside there at the International Horseshoe. That could have ended in heartbreak. Nathan Anderson, a series we said we're going to see all season. Pumping, rubbing, slicing, dicing, overtakes for glory. We're going to see heartbreak at its finest. And we're going to see all of it. With a 53-car grid, almost anything can happen at the same time. Your GTE lead, back to that for the moment, because it is a 1/10 gap between Lattimore and Wallace. We're going to see these two battle away throughout these, or at least the next 60 minutes, as Lattimore struggling to keep Wallace behind. Now, the thing I see here is Wallace is able to save a lot more fuel compared to Lattimore, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could run a lap or two longer.
Yeah, I think so. That could well be what we see. And they've got to try to get the strategy working away. But yeah, Lattimore's been leading pretty much this entire race, hasn't he? So yeah, he's going to really struggle on fuel. Of course, when they get to traffic, of course, they're going to have to lap those GT3 cars. Maybe pitting early is going to be the best way to go. It might mean that you don't have to overtake as many GT3 cars, and that could, in the end, turn out to be an advantage. But yeah, I'd certainly rather be the guy who has some options, which are, at the moment, Justin Wallace and Chris Whitaker, who are running in 2nd and 3rd places.
Have a listen to these guys through the first sector. Turn 5, go your GTE leaders. The door open there for Justin Wallace. Let's have a listen as they head onto the banking. And race control there, Sam, listening in the background. They have given Lee Vandenberg and your number 356 car is all the way down in P34 overall. And he is in P... I can't confirm the... excuse me, I have live timing issues, but I can't confirm his position in class, but he's going to drive through penalty for causing a collision, I believe.
Yes, so what number car was that?
356 of Lee Vandenberg.
Right, okay. Yeah, so yeah, he's getting a penalty. Yeah, 20-second stop and hold for causing a collision. Lap 13, turn 6. We also had a penalty earlier on for car 321, which is a very good number. 25-second stop and hold, which is, yeah, quite a big penalty for causing a collision on lap 4 into the bus stop. And I believe that was Reese Harnell who got that one. So some penalties being dished out. Fantastic to have live stewards, by the way, in this series. It's something that all the series that have live stewards, I think it works just about every time. Of course, people do have to sacrifice their times, obviously, and you know, I imagine some of those shows may want to be racing out there right now or doing something else. But thanks for them to giving up their time to serve the league. To go back
confirm.
To
sorry, Sam. To confirm as well, any driver who has the stop and hold can complete a mandatory stop at the same time as well. So that's confirmed. So look out for that as we see your GT3s get very close into the first corner. That is Matt Allison battling away with Sal Galenti. Now, if you believe it or not, the driver ahead is Robert Crisdale in the second position in your GT3s. He began the last lap in that 4th spot in class. 2 positions gained in 1 corner, and that is driving to perfection. I have to say that Matt Allison is he's not having the best of luck, is he, this race? He just can never seem to find some clear track ahead.
Yeah, he's being kind of pushed around at the moment, isn't he? And just losing out on these wheel-to-wheel battles occasionally. And it's always tough in that BMW because you're constantly vulnerable from the drivers behind you. You're thinking, well, you know, I'm faster than you guys, and yet you keep on passing me down these straights because I just don't have enough straight line speed. I'm sure that BMW will be more favourable, as we saw at Mosport last time out, at other tracks. Because, you know, in this situation, he can get close, but he might be able to pull alongside, has to lift out of it. He wants to get that run all the way down the straight, but just the straight line speed of those two neutralising going into the chicane. Trying to line up, but these guys losing time to Gamble. Gamble's now 4 seconds ahead of these guys.
Yep, that's exactly what Scott Gamble needed after that tumultuous first few laps he had. Currently just under an hour remaining in this event, so we'll go through your order. Top 3 in your GTEs include Stephen Latimore, and he is racing today for that Race on Oz outfit. Justin Wallace, his teammate, is behind in the 2nd position, and they're trying to break away from FT1 Motorsports' Chris Whitaker. So that is your top 3 for your GTEs, and they are in their own little breakaway group at the moment. The peloton is behind, and they're at least over 10 seconds behind is the nearest car, and that's Nathan Anderson in the Pulse Racing team for Shah. For GT3s includes Scott Gamble in the 1st position, as we just said, in the Audi for SG1 Sim Racing. Then it's Robert Crisdale in the Mercedes for JP's Sim Shed. And then Race on Oz, Matt Allison in the 3rd position in the BMW. Now, looking at the list right now, there's a lot of privateers looking for teams at the same time, Sam. And this is where you need to impress on the big stage.
Yep, always fair to be running in the team usually. Of course, although I say that, of course, this series does help independence a little bit because it's fixed setup, so you don't have to collaborate with drivers. You know, bash your heads together and figure out a setup for your car, because yeah, fixed setup for these guys gives lots of drivers a much better opportunity. But yeah, you certainly want to join a team at some point, especially for, of course, Daytona 24 Hours, which of course is hosted here, and Spa 24 Hours as well, which of course will be soon on the iRacing Esports Network. I'm sure many of these drivers will be taking part in that one. Allison ever so close to Crisdale at the moment. To the inside he goes. Has he pulled out a little bit early? You know what, actually that's about right. He's going to have the ideal line going into turn 1. Tough for Crisdale to stick it around the outside because the BMW is awesome at decelerating. And there you go, gets it stopped on the apex, and nice drive as well. So easy for him. That is Rob Gray. It's not the GT3 race leader, so Gray having a tough race at the moment, and that is for position. Of course, not in class, but in terms of the overall positions. Gray falling down a little bit.
Yeah, it's, these cars aren't too far away from each other in terms of pace. Your leaders, at least in your GT3s, are lapping right now in the 1 minute 44 range, and your leaders in the GTEs in the 1 minute 42 range. So, again, it's not the biggest deal that Rob Gray's having a bad day. You know, you could be a couple seconds off the pace of the leaders, and you'll find yourself being lapped by an alternate class. That is your GT3s behind. Now, I had something good to say, Sam. I forgot.
Well, I have something decent to say, is that the GT, of all the circuits, this is where the GT3s are going to be very good, because, well, my point was that they're very fast down the straights. I feel as though that point is kind of going out of the window of what we're currently seeing with the Porsche getting past the BMW right now. But at top-end speed, these two cars are very, very similar, the GTEs and the GT3s. And, of course, there's not many fast corners either, mainly slow corners where the GTEs don't have much an advantage. It's mainly fast corners where the GTEs have an advantage because of their extra downforce. And so of all the circuits this season, this is where the two cars are going to be most evenly matched. Chris Dale's looking like he's going to get overtaken by Galenti. Galenti, remember, was fighting for the lead earlier on, quite far away from that now, and it looks as though Chris Dale's the cork in the bottle at the moment, because he was holding up Allison earlier on, and now he seems to be holding up Galenti as well.
So you said before that the BMWs are great at deaccelerating.
Yes.
So you don't watch the NBA, do you?
I don't understand that reference. Sorry.
Oh. Right, you definitely don't watch the NBA. So those NBA fans, you have to say the BMW is the James Harden, I think, of GT3 cars. And challenge me on that if you want in the comment section. Is amazing at accelerating step backs. GT3, well, not going to be, at least in this race, Allison's taken a bit of a step back from his performances last round, but it's certainly got that beef in it to prove its worth. Looking at your leaders for your GTEs, this is going to get a little intense here as they lap a few cars up ahead in your GT3 cars. Lattimore makes his way past David Farrelly, who's down the back end of the order in your GT3s, and that should, well, it should have helped Dustin Wallace in the second position, but they're going to work together as teammates. I think these two for your Race on Oz team understand that it's not all going to be won at this stage in time. They need to break free from Chris Whitaker in that third position.
Yeah, I think so, and also help each other with the fuel as well. Those top three. Back to this battle for fourth place. Kenneth Latta fighting Nathan Anderson and Paul Wood. They are 12 seconds adrift from the front guys. Of course, you got Anderson and then Wood and then Clark, Gardner, Chambers, Bartholomew rounding out the top 10, by the way, in the GTEs. I believe that is, at least. Of course, you can see it on the timing tower as well, which nicely takes the all of it. And of course, the manufacturers that are being represented. That's more pulling away a bit now. 1 second ahead. I wonder if he'll do well. Have you ever been in a race like this where you're racing with a teammate and you're trying to help each other tactically to get the best result? And if so, do you think about yourself usually, or do you try to get the best result for the team?
No. I've always gotten along with 99% of my teammates, so it's always doing what's best for the team. As we see Anderson now about to be passed by Paul Wood. Paul Wood, at the end of the day, boxes in Nathan Anderson, who actually backed off the throttle, so that was quite interesting in terms of tactics. Paul Wood now will slice his way in between, and he's in a nice little sandwich here between Latta and Anderson. And back to your thing, so funny story once. This is when I was racing for PSR, for Positive Sim Racing, for those who don't know PSR. And I had to enter this Spanish Indy 500 race. It was like an Indy 250. It was like half the distance. And they ended up... it was myself, Pablo Lopez battling for the lead, and then we got confused with the rules. And I accidentally pitted with Pablo, and we ended up getting drive-through penalties on the green flag. So I ended up going a lap behind with Pablo. And then someone on the server in the next caution left Lucky Dog on, which doesn't exist in IndyCar. So I went back on the lead lap, poured up to my two teammates ahead, and we ended up finishing 1, 2, 3. And it's the only time PSR, I believe, has ever finished 1, 2, 3 in any official event, which is amazing.
That's a good story. Absolutely. I mean, Lucky Dog is lucky in the first place, but to have Lucky Dog enabled in a server which shouldn't have it, that is like, you should have entered the lottery that day.
I did, and I lost $20. But
right, okay.
At the end of the day, it would time our restarts. I don't know if this is against the sporting code, but I'm going to tell the story anyway. I don't care. We used to time our restarts, so whenever on TeamSpeak, like it was about to go green, we'd say, all right, countdown from now, count 3, 2, 1, I'm going to floor it. And you saw in one restart, I think I gained 3 positions into turn 1 at Indianapolis. Like, it was that great of a restart. So that's pure teamwork, and sim racing is, Sam, like, it is a team sport. It's not... I've only ever competed with 2 teammates in my entire sim racing career, and those guys, I have to say, were, I mean, to be nice, not the most pleasant of people, and that's a big euphemism right there. The rest of the time, I love talking on TeamSpeak to teammates and coming up with setups. In this series, we know you don't have to come up with setups because it's a fixed setup series, but you can discuss different lines into corners, strategies that work, have a laugh every now and then, and I love it, man.
Absolutely, and the BSR leagues as well that we've covered. We always see fantastic teamwork from everyone there, with kind of 5 drivers per team in that, and pretty much everyone is part of a team, and it really does encourage drivers to stick to a series. And it's good to see so many teams being represented out here, and of course, yeah, all the Aussie teams are being represented out there as well. Although I must say, for 24-hour races, if you've only got Aussies, not a fantastic idea, unless, they're nocturnal, which I do know a few Aussies which are nocturnal, actually. But yeah, it can be a bit of a difficult time when you're all got the same geographical location in such a long race. Anyway, Latta and Anson just staying behind still, seemingly. And yeah, in fact, into the pits was a driver. But I think that was just a back mark, in fact. Still Gamble leading the way in the GT3s. He is... wow, is he 7 seconds ahead of Matt Allison now? Quite an... sorry, no, he's only 2 seconds ahead of Matt Allison.
At 2 seconds, yeah.
So, yeah, very close. Actually, closing in is Allison. So, but he's still got Christelle and stuff. Maybe those guys are starting to work together a little bit. And Galenzi is also... Oh, sorry, no, Allison, apologies. Allison is 3.6 seconds ahead of Christelle, and then Christelle is under pressure from Galenzi, who's failed to make that overtake, despite appearing a little bit faster. They got BJ Kennedy behind for Right Sim Racing, who could be a factor when it comes to the pit stops.
And I also add that Matt Allison 2 laps ago was 1 second faster than Scott Gamble. So the traffic certainly coming into play and helping out Matt Allison reel in Gamble for that lead. And it's a long event. We're almost halfway through it so far. We've had a big one so far. I thought Gamble was going to run away with the lead here, and he seems quite in trouble right now, trying to make his way past some traffic.
Yep, we knew that this was potentially a factor with how similar these cars are. Just on the chat, yeah, Seacon. Oh, well, I think we've already adjusted, but yeah, the GTEs are the faster class, and that's the Ferrari 488, the BMW M8, and also, am I forgetting a car? I think I am. You've also got the Ford, and you've also got the Porsche, but there's no Fords out there. And these cars are very quick, lots of downforce in those GTE cars. And then the GT3s are the BMW, Audi, and Merc, and they're a little bit slower, pretty quick down the straight still, but a little bit slower around the corners. So GT3 is usually quite a bit slower.
And I tell you one quick thing. We have a few cars in the pit lane, as you can see at the bottom side, or the bottom of the screen. And should be around the mark where we see drivers make their first pit stops for this event. But Scott Gamble right now, can I add here, is under a lot of trouble trying to make his way past Bob Gray up ahead. He's got Stephen Davies behind. It's Scott Chambers not in the scrap, but this is just this is the last thing Scott Gamble needs at this stage of the race, halfway through.
Yeah, and this is yeah, tough for him at the moment, trying to negotiate these cars. Allison is now 1.8 second behind. You can just see him in the BMW in the background there. So Gamble quick out of this corner then. Seems to be pretty rapid down the straight. Maybe the Porsche struggling with a bit of aero damage perhaps, because he can seem to kind of half get the move done down into this corner, but then he can't make it stick going into turn 1.
Let's have a look. Let's see. They're in separate classes, and Rob Gray now has to file in behind the driver of Scott Gamble. Ahead, and that is Scott Gamble in your SG1 sim racing car. Now, let me guess, SG, does it stand for Scott Gamble? Possibly. And he is out in the way here. He has a 100, can't count, 1,937 I rating.
Yeah, he's good, doing a good job there. Yeah, most of these GT3 drivers around the 2,000 mark. Now,
can I add? Sorry, Sam. Excuse me. Chris Whitaker also in your GTEs has entered the pit lane, and he is out and away in some clean air, and he leaves your race on Oz cars all alone here through the middle part of the lap. So this is going to be interesting to see whether or not he can get some quick out laps here and possibly undercut them through this pit stop phase.
No tyres seemingly for Whitaker. Seemingly wanting to split this race half and half, which maybe he just didn't put a whole lot of fuel in at the start of the race, perhaps. And he just wanted to do 45 minutes in the first tank, 45 minutes of fuel in the second tank, whilst the others maybe fueled up to do an entire hour. But, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what the other guys do. But yeah, he's got a bit of fresh air hit, and crucially doesn't drop too far back in the GTE field. He's still in 6th place according to my screen.
While that's taking place, as we said, the Race on Oz leaders, there's 3 cars now from Race on Oz leading your GTEs. It's a 1, 2, 3. Positive sim racing again. This is a flashback, isn't it? It doesn't have my name on there and my 2 teammates. But they're currently in your top 3. That includes Lattimore Wallace and Kenneth Atta. Almost became a tongue twister. Then Scott Gamble in first, Allison second, third is Sal Galenti, Robert Crisdale fourth. Now, I've been surprised now as we see, I think one of your GTEs pit. I thought that was Matt Allison for a second, but I've got that wrong. What I was trying to say was, no one's really been taken out of contention in this race. Scott Gamble was the closest when he made a few errors heading into this corner. He's heading through now the International Horseshoe, turn 3, the Daytona road course. It's nice to see the standards of racing here are top-notch so far.
Yeah, either we haven't seen any of the crashes happening, or I don't think there have been any crashes. And I certainly hope that it is the latter. Yeah, there's a very high quality driving at the moment. Everyone's, I think, just getting on with just trying to maximize their race. They're not too fussed about what everyone else is doing. They're just focusing that they get their best results, and they're kind of just running at their pace that they're comfortable with, which is very impressive from these guys. Because, yeah, a lot of these drivers are kind of below 2k I rating. Yeah, just keeping it on the track and then pounding in these laps. And we've seen a much higher attrition rate from some higher I-rated drivers in the past on ApexRacingTV.
Again, sorry, Sam. Again, thanks for joining us for action today for round 5 of the series. This is one of 2 endurance rounds in the championship. This is one of 3, excuse me. Sorry. So we had the Spa endurance round for round 1, then we have Daytona today, of course, and Silverstone endurance round for round 8. So that will be on the 4th of August, Silverstone round, and in between those, we'll have our super sprint races, Lime Rock Park next week. Road America in a fortnight's time, and then to end the season after the Silverstone event, we'll have Sebring, Suzuka, Virginia International Raceway, and then we cap off the campaign at Road Atlanta. And I'm trying to count here, Sam. There are how many races in the Americas? Interlagos, South America, that's 1. O Sport, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 out of the 12 rounds in the Americas. It's Bathurst. Come on. It's an Aussie series.
You're right. What, is there not a single... Oh, come on, bring Oran Park in there. You know, a nice... Yeah. Oran Park is legendary, that place. Of course, now a shopping mall / neighborhood.
Like a footy oval in there somewhere.
Yeah. um, yeah.
I'm
I mean, that would be awesome in these cars. You know, in what, a 20-minute race, GTEs and GT3s on Park, bring it on. Phillip Island also very good as well, and that actually does operate as a multi-class track half decently. Actually, DGFX have now used it in the past, so you know. Come on, organizer. We've been saying how good you are, but your track selection for an Aussie series could be improved.
He's calling them out. Is Sam Fitzpatrick here in the commentary booth? I have to say, of course, Scott Newton, our producer behind the scenes, saying Oran Park is too small.
Nah.
GTs and GT3s, especially a 50-car field. Can I also add, I used to run 100-car races around Bristol for fun. Still Motor Speedway, the Oval, and that was a fun overtaking. Like just working on racecraft, working on lapping cars. I also did that at Monza. And I think I did it in Montreal, but only 70 cars started the race because 30 couldn't fit on the grid, and they ended up just DNFing, did not starting.
Right. So what game is this?
I can't say.
Oh,
So,
okay.
into the pit lane is Lattimore and Wallace. Your two race on Oscars, and they finally enter the pit lane. So the question is now, where is Chris Whitaker going to be? And he is... Oh, he hasn't even entered the bus stop chicane yet. So quick pit stop here for your race on Oscars, and they should be able to reclaim this lead.
Yep, so yeah, all these pit stops now kicking off for these 40 minutes to go in the race. I did expect a few drivers to go a little bit further, but maybe they are limited on fuel. Certainly not everyone has pitted yet, as Gallo and Wood are very close to one another. Both trying to get past the back marker, I believe.
Can I add as well is Chris Whitaker, and he's going to pass your two race on Oz cars up ahead. So Chris Whitaker finds himself ahead right now. And if I'm not mistaken, Sam, he is your lead car right now that has made a pit stop. It's correct.
Yes, yes. So
Chris Whitaker takes overall lead.
Yeah. So yeah, Lattimore's a long way behind, isn't he? 5 seconds. Like those must have been some good laps from Chris Whitaker. His pit stop, I'm just looking, was in fact I don't think I've got the correct pit stop times up, but you know, I think it was pretty rapid for Whitaker, and nice lead now over Lattimore and Wallace. So now what do Lattimore and Wallace do? They've got to work as a team, and at this point you've got to make some tough calls. I think who is the faster driver, and so who should lead these guys in their pursuits now of Chris Whitaker, because yeah, so far Lattimore has been ahead, and they seem to have lost out. So maybe it's worth giving Wallace an opportunity out in front.
Well, let's see. Of course, Wallace has been the one fuel saving for 50 minutes of this event, just under an hour. He heads through middle part of the lap. We're 52 minutes through this event. 90-minute race here at Daytona. And we just heard news. So Ryan Kolstad, we're talking to race control behind the scenes. We're trying to distract him from his job, aren't we? He's told us that next week at Lime Rock Park will actually be at Okayama because for Wreckfest reasons. That's all I'm going to say. So that'll be round 6 next week. You can confirm.
I mean,
don't miss
Okayama's a
it.
great track, in my opinion.
Is it?
Some good old Japanese tarmac. I really like it. And also that hairpin at the end of the back straight. Obviously, the F1 races they hosted around there were a bit dull. But, and it's in the middle of a forest. But now I really like it.
Oh, I don't like it. It just reminds me of trying to get out of rookies for so long.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
That's probably why. It's just bad memories. I mean, how many F1 races did they have? They had 2 there.
I think so.
And then, yeah, I had one, like, obviously, those that know me, like, I'm not Martin Kroenke, but I'm not, like, shouldn't struggle to get our rookies, you know, for my caliber. That's so arrogant. What am I talking about? But what I'm trying to say is, I tried to get our rookies once, and I finished the race, 0 incidents. And then this is when I was new to iRacing, and then I parked at the end of the race, and the guy in second place turned through turn 1, went behind me, and went full throttle into me and took me out. And I got 4 incident points. And I just wasted the whole race. And I was so frustrated with it. I didn't realize you had to save a replay to send in a protest. And I tell you right now, 6 years later, I'm still salty.
Got out of rookie 6 years later.
I've still gotten out. That would be that'd be quite concerning if I hadn't. But yeah, I'm still so petty about that. You know, I think they need a bit of Ryan Kolstad on race control as we see the leader, Pat Gallo, now enter the pit lane, and he will get away into his box, and he'll allow Chris Whitaker to take overall lead here for this race in your GTEs. I think we needed Ryan Kolstad there, Sam, race controlling that day, because yeah, I mean, I almost did the Sebastian Vettel thing. I wanted to switch the pit boards after the race.
I mean, if only we had a few more Ryan Kolstad, say. That's that old saying. As Hewitt goes ahead of Gamble, which we were just watching. So yeah, Whitaker, into the race lead, and I think traffic could play a bit of a part. We've seen the GT3 struggling to get past the GTEs. I think the GTEs are going to struggle to get past the GT3s as well. How far behind are they? Yeah, they're coming up. Well, actually, they're only going to catch. No, they will catch actually in about 10 minutes. Quite a few GT3s. So watch out for that one. I think that's going to be tough. And a lot of those GT3s currently racing against one another. So it could be a factor in this race. But all the GTEs then have pitted, haven't they? And all the GT3s have pitted as well. So we pretty much know where we are at this point. And it's now just a sprint to the finish. 34 minutes to go.
Can I add, Scott Gamble has made a pit stop, and he's so far down the order now once the field has started to spread out. So he's had some issues for sure. Oh, there's a car at turn 1 into the wall. Sal Galenti is into the wall, and he's just parked on the racetrack. And this is something that I was going to have to be careful of. And race control will be letting them know that there is a car parked into the wall. This almost looks like a technical issue. Otherwise, he's probably just thinking about life at the moment. He's finally back into the pit lane, but race over. Sal Galenti for PRT, your Pulse Racing team. And that is a dramatic incident here towards the end of this event.
Was in the running for a podium, of course. And with the issues for the former race leader, you know, he was giving himself a decent opportunity there, but no, out of the race. And it's such a common mistake down into turn 1 can so easily get stuck into the tyre barrier, lose the car under braking. So yeah, that gives a little bit of a break for those other front runners. Damon Mulqueen will be one of the drivers who gains a place. Just looking at
Can I add, sorry, Sam, just confirming. So it's Andy Smith in the 325 car who has turned in on that driver of Sal Galenti, and he has ended his race and received a 20-second stop and hold penalty. So that's, I think, a well-deserved penalty for sure. And for Sal, he will be kicking air at the moment, and he will be quite displeased with his event so far. He is officially confirmed as a retirement so far, and not the way you wanted to end a strong event.
Nope. And hopefully we'll see him back at Okayama next week, but he's already disconnected from the session, and I don't blame him one bit. Will be extremely frustrating for him because, yeah, podium was looking quite probable for him there. In the GT3s then, so we've got Christelle leading then, according to my screen, at the head of the GT3s, but he hasn't pitted yet. So Allison is the effective leader, and then we've got Madaford, who hasn't pitted yet properly. Then Gamble, who's quite a long way behind. So this one, all of a sudden for Matt Allison, looking as though he's going to run away with this one. He's a long way ahead of Scott Gamble at the moment.
Certainly is. There is Scott Gamble right now on the racetrack. Is that the back? Is that the first? The exit of turn 6, or is this the front stretch? No, it's the exit of turn 6, excuse me. So he's heading towards that bus stop chicane. Talked about the overtaking spots. Turn 1, turn 8, heading into now where Scott Gamble is currently traversing his way through the Daytona road course. Can I ask you something? The Charlotte Roval, Sam, are you a fan of the Charlotte Roval? Is it too artificial for you? Too many walls?
Too many. Yeah, I don't like it. I dislike the bus stop as well. Although of course they have changed it.
Such a weird circuit. Like
It is. Yeah.
It looks like something I would have built. I was gonna say, like, it looks like something I would have built on Bob's Track Builder.
Yeah. I know that Tyler Maxson, who is our fellow commentator on Apex Racing TV and a real life driver as well in the Mazda MX-5s. He loves that circuit. It's his favourite circuit. He hasn't raced it in real life, but on sim racing, it is his favourite circuit, and I was surprised, to say the least.
Can I give it hats off anyway to the circuit developers, because for an obviously artificial circuit, I mean, every circuit's artificial if you think about it. You know, there's no circuit that's just popped out of nowhere. Oh, Scott Gamble spun. Excuse me, sorry, off camera. I'm just having a watch of Scott Gamble, and he is spun at turn 5. We'll talk about the Charlotte Roval's not important, but we'll talk about that later, because Scott Gamble at turn 5 again, he's had severe mid-corner oversteer. And the way I think about it, Sam, is if you're having those mid-corner oversteer struggles, you probably have to go faster and keep your foot on the rear, on the throttle, because you want to shift that rate to the rear. What am I saying? You want to shift that weight to the rear, and you want to obviously keep the car balanced. And what Scott Gamble's doing there is, I think he's just off throttle is where he's having those issues. So that's he probably needs to go faster.
I just saw a car buried in tyres at the bus stop. I'll try to figure out who that was. Not quite sure, but Gamble's struggling out there at the moment. No doubt about that. And maybe also those tyres as well, just degrading a little bit. These cars do have traction control, the GT3s do, at least, and the GTEs do as well. So it's ought to have kind of issues with the rear tyres, really, because we're not really putting too much load on them. They're not spinning up or whatever. So, yeah, just struggling with that setup. Maybe that Audi setup. I have heard the Audi is very difficult to drive, as Matt Allison has had to come into the pits. So from the race lead, I thought he was having an easy race. I thought he was going to dominate this race, but no, he's had to come back into the pits. And that means that Gamble's leading okay. That is Allison's second pit stop, isn't it?
Correct. Isn't Robert Crisdale ahead in your GT3s? Is he also...
Crisdale still has to pit.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. And he's about to pit right now. You ask, you receive. And he's into the pit lane very early. He almost has to floor the throttle. He's got onto the limiter too early. Finds his box straight away in that 355 car. So you're right. It looks like leader should be Matt Allison. Matt Allison's coming through turn 6, but Crisdale's having a quick event, isn't he, Sam? So I wouldn't be surprised if Crisdale actually, at the moment, still leads this race. It's going to be tight between himself and Scott Gamble, as well as Matt Allison.
Yes, it is. So now, coming down the pit straight, Gamble is...
He's still on the final corner. Oh.
Yeah, he's way ahead, is Crisdale, isn't he?
Yeah, man, that was a quick pit stop, to be honest with you, by Crisdale. And at least on my timing screens, and by the way, we are having issues today with live timing and scoring, so some of these times be incorrect, but it's showing, at least for me, Sam, as a 49-second pit lane time. So 23-second pit stop, which is insanely quick, because we saw some drivers in the pit lane, like your GTEs were in there for over a minute. Your race on Oz leaders of Lattimore and Wallace. And Chris Whitaker for your FT1 Motorsport car was only in there for about 5 seconds left. So the pit lane time makes a huge deal.
Yes, absolutely. And so it will be fascinating to have some interviews with the drivers later on. So sorry, Gamble's back into the pits. Do these drivers have to make 2 pit stops? Or...
We've seen somebody in the chat confirm that. We haven't had any confirmation of that. So that could be something that could come into play.
Right, okay. Well...
Maybe Ryan Kolstad can tell us.
Yeah, well, I'm confused right now, and apologies if we haven't quite recognised that. But maybe have to use pit stops. Also, I think Latimore and Wallace, did they take tyres? I think they did. I might actually have to have a look back at that. But their pit stop was about 26 seconds longer than Whittaker's. That's the battle for the GTE race lead, of course. And they are closing in a bit, according to my screen, at least. So, yeah, lots of different strategies at play, and hopefully we'll have some interviews with drivers to kind of figure out what's been going on in this race, because yeah, it's been a lot more about strategy than I first thought it would be.
Certainly, and it's confirming there is 25 minutes left in this event, and it's a good time to go through your order, and it includes your top 3 in your GTEs. Currently are Chris Whittaker in your FT1 Motorsport car, followed by the 2 Race on Oz teammates of Stephen Lattimore, Justin Wallace. Those 3 have been in a tussle for glory this entire event, and I just saw a driver spin up ahead. We've just heard race control. Excuse me there for pausing for a second. Ryan Kolstad's just confirmed on race control. 2 compulsory pit stops. That's confirmed here, Sam. You must take 4 tires on 1 stop.
Right. Thanks for that.
That changes this race quite a bit.
Yes. So that means that Matt Allison will be the effective leader when all the is all said and done in the GT3s. And that means that all the leaders in the GTEs, in fact, pretty much all the GTEs full stop, have still got to make their second pit stop.
So if you were a driver in the series, would you take your 4 tires on the second stop to end the race, or would you take them that first stop?
I think Whittaker has nailed this one. He pitted at 45 minutes halfway through the race, and so has had to do the same amount of laps on each set of tyres. And I think he's going to pit on probably the last lap of the race, so that he doesn't have to carry as much fuel.
He's pitting right now.
Oh, right.
Ruined that for you.
Oh, dear. Oh, I thought I knew something. Ah, didn't.
That's Chris Whittaker into the pit lane in that Ferrari, and he allows your Race on Oz cars to lead this event. It'll be a Race on Oz 1, 2, 3, possibly, depending how long this pit stop takes, because Kenneth Latta is right on pit window of Chris Whittaker. It looks like, from our calculations, they will come out alongside each other into the pit lane. Oh, sorry, exiting the pit lane. And that's something that we'll look out for. But let's see how they go. Well, Chris Whittaker's had a very quick pit stop, so we well ahead of Kenneth Latta. And he is in that 3rd position. Now has to hunt down the 2 drivers ahead here, Sam. Has to ensure that he keeps his pace high on these outlaps in clean air, because from what I saw, Stephen Lattimore was the quickest of the 3.
Yeah, Lattimore was closing in on Whittaker, wasn't he? So good news for Whittaker, at least as he's still in P3, and so he doesn't have to overtake the likes of Latta and co. So that is certainly some consolation for him. Nice battle right now between Clermont and Bartholomew, and Chambers as well. For the lower places out of the top 10, Bartholomew and Clermont's in 11th, 12th. All the way up to Gallo in 9th. So nice battle amongst those drivers, which we haven't paid too much attention to so far. And of course, also Kenneth Latta having a nice run in P4 as well, a little bit by himself. The field is kind of spread out, apart from that battle for kind of that 5th down to 12th at the moment in the GTEs. It's separated by only about 20 seconds, which is pretty close.
It certainly is, and they're all still on the lead lap, which is encouraging to see over an hour into this event. Can I go back to the Charlotte Roval talk we were having about 10 minutes ago? So I like how artificially they've made that camber. They've embedded the camber as Chris Whittaker now is hugging that yellow line at the bottom end as I'm watching him off camera, and he's trying to reel in 2 Race on Oz cars ahead. So the reason I like that in the Charlotte Roval is, like, close walls. How often do you see white wall with cambered corners? Like, it is the only circuit I can remember with it's like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's so smooth. It's not a street circuit, but it looks like one. It's got camber of a street circuit. It's an interesting challenge. I think it's a love it or hate it circuit. It's not an in between. It's not an on the fence circuit.
Yeah, the only circuit I can think of maybe which is relatively similar is Sochi, but Sochi does have runoff areas, doesn't it? But I mean,
And
it's
no
kind of
camber.
yes, yeah, that's a very flat circuit, isn't it? Yeah, you certainly love it or hate it, that circuit. I know that I think Marco Barbanero told me how another co-commentator for ApexRacingTV. He apparently there's the rock. They wanted to make the Charlotte Roval flat, but the rock was too hard and they just built over it in the end. I believe that is the case. So that's how you get that elevation change in the second half of the Roval. And I guess they could probably flatten it out if they really wanted to, but you know, it adds some nice banking to the circuit. And of course, yeah, that camber that you were talking about, that is 100% artificial, of course. So that is a weird track. Personally, there's not really any Rovals I like. Even this one, I'm not a big fan of it. But you know, maybe at least Charlotte have mixed it up a little bit and added its own unique twist on a Roval.
This is the most random thing. Jonathan's random things that I'll say during broadcast. I feel like if I had to hear dog's first words, I'd say I'd want to hear a dog say Roval, just to hear how it would sound coming out of a dog. Dogs knew how to speak. Like if Brian Griffin said it. You know what I'm on about right
now? I mean, I'm trying to imagine it, right? What type of dog?
You see, I got you thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. What type of dog?
I mean, any type of. I mean, you know, Labradors, your Jack Russells, whatever. It doesn't matter what breed. I'm going to discriminate on dog breeds.
I mean, this is going really random now. We are on a massive tangent. But do you know who voices the Churchill dog on the adverts? I mean, you may not know. Do you even know what the Churchill dog is?
No, I don't know. It sounds like a
okay
thing.
Yeah, okay. It probably is. But do you know who Bob Mortimer is?
Heard of Bob Mortimer. Oh, I can't speak today. Heard of Bob Mortimer.
Okay. Well, he's the voice of it, basically, and it's very supposed. So you could just ask him to say Roval, and pretty much that would be it. There you go. Geez, that was a waste of time.
Well, I mean, it just filled in the time midway through this race, because right now, your GT3s, Chrisdale has a comfortable advantage ahead of Allison, and we know that they're going to have to make 2 mandatory pit stops, and Allison is in a much better position right now than Robert Chrisdale, who has only entered the pit lane once. And he is heading through turn 6. If we flicked him at Allison, he is just past the International Horseshoe. So we just heard that Whitaker earlier took fuel only. That is why he had such a quick pit stop. But I don't think for Chrisdale, doesn't matter how quick of a pit stop he has, I don't think he's going to be able to maintain this lead advantage ahead of Matt Allison.
Yeah, this one falling into Allison's hands nicely, and yeah, he should have the advantage when all is said and done. Chrisdale, his main battle is, I think, with Gamble, because Gamble had that very long first pit stop, didn't he? But he's now made those 2 pit stops, so it could be close between Chrisdale and Gamble. They're fighting against each other in the early stages as well. Also, Damon Mulqueen is running in 4th position in that class. I don't think he's too far behind Gamble either. So those 3, Chrisdale, Gamble, and Mulqueen, could all have quite a nice battle in the closing stages of this race.
This is interesting because Stephen Lattimore, your leader, has entered the pit lane, and he is left Justin Wallace all on his own, his teammate. They've coordinated strategy with each other, and maybe Wallace has saved enough fuel to go a little bit longer here this time round. There is Chris Whitaker, though. He is coming towards the start-finish straight. It depends how quick Lattimore will exit his box. Lattimore's out of the box right now, and he's heading towards the apex of turn 1. Where is Chris Whitaker? Hasn't even entered the apex of 1 himself. And he finds himself now, that's Stephen Lattimore, in the overall lead for your GTEs. Now, that is dependent on whether or not his teammate Justin Wallace feeds out ahead or behind his teammate.
Brilliant strategy there from Lattimore. Stuck to his guns with that decision to pit a little bit later and maybe just taking a little bit less fuel on that second pit stop than Whitaker. He's got the race lead now, and this is looking very strong for him to perhaps take this this race win. Now, the question is, will Wallace jump Whitaker? Because 5-second gap between Lattimore and Whitaker, and I think Wallace was closer to Lattimore than what Whitaker is to Lattimore now. So I think it could well turn out to be a race on Oz 1-2 when all is said and done. And Whitaker will be perhaps a little bit surprised to see Stephen Lattimore come out quite so far ahead of him.
So let's see how this ends up right now. Justin Wallace, is he entering the pit lane? He is. Justin Wallace, 1 lap later. Oh, he's on the bubble. That looked close to speeding. He looks good right now to possibly claim the lead. I'm going to have a look at lap times as Wallace crosses the line. A 48.6 on his in lap. For Lattimore, it was a 48.4. This is going to be on the bubble right now. Wallace is... Oh, he's going to be behind. So Justin Wallace right now is going to be behind both your top 2 drivers of Stephen Lattimore and Chris Whitaker. I know this is going to be close. Is Chris Whitaker ahead? He is. So Chris Whitaker is in the 2nd position, and he split those race on Oz cars, which is ever important for his championship chances.
Yeah, Wallace only 2 seconds behind. Got a little bit of traffic as well, though, does Wallace. So he's got to negotiate this one nice and quickly. I believe, has Whitaker changed tyres? I'm not quite sure, but I think Wallace might have fresher tyres than Whitaker, which could be really important at the end of this race. He'll certainly feel confident that he can close in that gap. But going to have a very strong final 15 minutes of this race. Certainly Lattimore looking super strong out in the lead, though, 6 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. I mean, that should be a big enough gap as long as he doesn't make any mistakes. Latter is in 4th position, although I don't think he's made his 2nd pit stop yet. And then, of course,
Stephen Lattimore, you're talking about, sorry, who? Oh, no, Kenneth
I was
Latter.
just saying, Kenneth Latter, has he made his 2nd pit
he
stop
has.
yet?
So
he has.
2
Okay.
pit stops for Latter, yeah. That means everybody, the first driver right now is Pat Gallo. He's the first driver who hasn't made a 2nd pit stop. Abe Clements for Mach 1 Esports. So your 2 Mach 1 Esports cars there of Gallo and Clements have not entered the pit lane for their 2nd stop. They're in your GTE class. For your GT3s, it's Chris Uding. He's a privateer. Hasn't entered the pit lane for his 2nd stop. But apart from that, everybody is good to go to finish this race without being disqualified.
I mean, I was saying 20 minutes ago, it's a straight sprint to the race now, no more pit stops to go, and it turned out that everyone had 1 more pit stop to go. But now, this is a proper sprint, 15 minutes to go in this race, and yeah, they could chew up the tyres as much as they like. Track temperature is still at 22 degrees, so of course, not too much tyre wear whatsoever for these guys. And yeah, they can throw caution to the wind at this point in the race.
A good race so far. It's been the action's been, it was to start the event, there was quite a bit of action. It's died down just a touch here as I see a driver. Just as I say that, there's a driver now off into the first couple of corners, and it was tough to see who that was. It could have been just having a look. Oh, it was Yarvin Wood. So Yarvin Wood there races for PRT. It's off the racetrack at turn 1, and he has made contact, I believe, with quite a bizarre incident with Aaron Gilbert. Aaron Gilbert almost hit the tire bollards at turn 1, and then to avoid them, and he's collected another driver as well. So that's something that race control will probably be looking at.
Post-race review for car 746. I don't think that has it. That was a few laps ago. BJ Kennedy has made contact there, and he's got himself stuck. And drivers going round. Who has he just made contact to there?
379 car of Grant Matterford. And Matterford has got a lot of damage to the rear end there of that Mercedes. And he certainly won't be pleased with that. It just looks like BJ Kennedy there, Sam. It looked like he outbroke himself in the braking zone. Just his marker.
Yep, and a bit of an odd incident there. Of course, different drivers have different lines to that corner. Some really go out wide there, brake a little bit later, and some drivers like to take a real tight line. So perhaps that was the reason for the contact, but I don't think the stewards are going to look too kindly upon that. But it seems as though all the penalties now which are going to be dished out are going to be given post-race rather than during the race. So a little bit more analysis can be done.
That's good though, isn't it? You know, it just gives race control a little bit more time to think about their decisions. Not going to give people 5-second penalties for rejoining the racetrack safely. Tracks like Montreal, for example, ruin the racing. So,
oh, geez, that was dangerous.
I'm a Hamilton fan, and that was one of the worst penalties I've ever seen in Formula One, to be honest with you.
I mean, I saw their perspective, but I didn't want there to be a penalty. And I am a Hamilton fan, and I still didn't want there to be a penalty. But there you go. Okay, we're really dipping our toe into some shark-infested waters here. But what was your opinion on the Austria one?
The Verstappen one. I like it. Bumping's racing. I don't mind it. But I did see Maldonado at Hungary, I think 2012, receive a penalty, a drive-through penalty for the same thing that Max did for Leclerc. Right. Just basically made contact. If you don't make contact, it's clean. If you do, I don't know, it's up to the steward's discretion, isn't it? Any rules that are up to interpretation, there's always going to be arguments in sports. That's the problem. When you have a white line painted, can't really argue that, you know? So you're always going to have that when you have rules up for interpretation. A quick aside, when I was racing an FSR, this is back in 2014, the same thing that Sebastian Vettel did, I rejoined safer than Vettel, gave plenty of room to everybody behind me, and I think it ended up causing a 9-car pileup. I ended up receiving a 2 back of the grid starts for the next 2 rounds, which ended up being a pit lane start or something like that. It ended up being appealed, and I think the entire grid was on my side against a race steward that I think, good reasons, is probably out of sim racing. Haven't heard about them in 5 years. The worst decision I could have hoped for. Ruined my championship for the whole year. 9 months of hard work as well. I mean, not salty about that, as you can tell.
Yeah, I was just going to say, at least you're not bitter about it, you know. Yeah, honestly, motorsport decisions. I would not like to be a steward one bit because, well, everyone has different opinions on what should be legal, what isn't legal, and then to enforce it is almost impossible. Yeah. But, you know, on a lighter note, you know, motorsport isn't all doom and gloom, despite the fact that I'd say the vast majority of news reports on motorsport are quite depressing. This race has been good fun, as we expected. Quite close between Whittaker and Wallace now. So Whittaker and Wallace separated by 0.7 of a second, at least from what I'm seeing.
They're definitely close. Can I add as well? Lattimore leads your GTEs, but we're talking about this battle for second position between Chris Whittaker and Justin Wallace. Chris Whittaker has split for 2 race on Oz cars. He's in a nice sandwich, isn't he? Here, he's in a nice little pickle towards the end of this event. So that is your top 3 in your GTEs. Kenneth Latter's all on his own in the 4th position, with Nathan Anderson rounding out your top 5. And this is with just under 8 minutes to go. It's about to be 7 minutes to go as the timer ticks down to 0 in this event. Matt Allison leads your GT3s ahead of Scott Gamble, which has been quite an interesting strategy battle this race in your GT3s, because Gamble had the lead in the early stages and he had the pace, but it's been Matt Allison yet again finding himself back into that 1st position. They are followed by Robert Crisdale, Damon Mulqueen, and Roy Clark in your 5th position for the GT3s this evening for the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development Series on Apex Racing TV. Jonathan Simon in the commentary booth alongside Sam Fitzpatrick. It is Scott Newton behind the scenes in production. So we're going to call these final few minutes of the race, Sam, but yet again, it is Matt Allison who's driven splendidly and just finds himself back into that first position yet again.
I mean, we were really doubting his chances in the early stages. Was leading, had pole position, but just seemed to be getting shuffled down the order. But with the strategy and with his lack of mistakes as well, he's pulled it out. I'd love to have an interview with him because he had a chat with us at Mossport last time out, and I hope he'll have a chat with us this time. How he's got ahead of Scott Gamble, because Gamble had such a long first pit stop. Maybe that was the difference, but yeah, maybe he picked up a penalty. I'm not quite sure, but Allison, one way or another, has worked it perfectly for himself. Lots of quick laps as well, as he can understand, and looks like it's going to be a race on Oz. First place in the GTEs and a first place in GT3s as well.
Certainly. Let's see how this race ends, because I mean, I've seen a 24-hour event in the past where it ended on the final lap in heartbreak, and we don't need any reminding of that. Is that the 2017 Le Mans race, Sam? Or was that 2016? I can't remember the year. I think it was 2017.
Think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that was 2017
sure.
with the Toyota.
Yeah.
So that ended in heartbreak. This is a 90-minute event, and well, let's hope that it doesn't end in heartbreak for Stephen Lattimore or Matt Allison. And I don't believe in commentary curses. Well, let's see how we go. We're currently watching your battle P2 in your GTEs, because this is the closest battle on the racetrack for the moment. 1/10 of a second separating Chris Whitaker and Justin Wallace right now. Where would you go here, Sam? For the inside into turn 1? I guess Chris Whitaker is going to hug that yellow line.
Yeah, I think, any opportunity, maybe, probably turn 1 going to be the best opportunity. But that outside line now, plenty of marbles, not a whole lot of grip for these drivers. And so he's got to be really careful of where he goes for. And a third position, it wouldn't be the end of the world by any means. It'd still be some good, solid points. He's coming up to traffic now, these two, and they're quite a lot faster than these GT3 cars. Actually, if anything, could be good for Chris Whitaker. We'll get a slipstream down into the bus stop, as he has to go to the inside of the BMW right now. But no doubt that Wallace is the faster driver at this point in the race. And he's got, well, just looking at where the race leader is, probably 2 more laps, I think. I think that's going to be it. 2 more laps for him to get a 1-2 for race on us.
Here they are to the bus stop yet again. Wallace and Whitaker have some traffic to maneuver their way around. I want to trip over that driver ahead there of BJ Kennedy, who was involved in his own incidents earlier on this event just about 20 minutes ago, which race control have been looking at. He's going to have to allow your leaders through, and he does. Moves to the high line and will allow Whitaker and Wallace to battle this out in the closing stages. And Wallace, this is going to be tough because he can't really go for the outside line. Again, this braking zone into turn 1 just doesn't promote overtaking, does it? You can hug that inside line and get away with it every single time. I guess Wallace, what he needs to do is just force Whitaker on the defensive here into the international horseshoe, and that will put him on the back foot through the rest of the first sector. That's what I'm just trying to come up with suggestions for Wallace to possibly pull off a move.
Yeah, I mean, if he can get within 1/4 of a second going onto one of the long straights, he's going to have a really good chance, isn't he? And also down into the bus stop, you were saying how it's the best chance at an overtake earlier on. You can't defend that one because there's so much space on the inside. If anything, you can go off the circuit if you need to get the inside line. Here he goes. He is 0.28 of a second behind coming onto the oval section. So this could be close enough for a move, but that BMW, Ferrari, it's not really closing down to a 0.2 of a second now. Now it's really starting to kick in that slipstream effect as they climb up the speed. Doesn't go for the inside, he wants to go for the outside. He's going to get the cutback maybe. This would be a brave move if he's going to go for it.
Oh!
And actually just mistimed his turn in a little bit, had to consider the car on the inside, and now that's ruined his run. down into turn 1, perhaps.
And that's a tough skill in sim racing. Unless you're using virtual reality, it's very difficult to spot those turning points and look to the left. Triple screen setups help. If Wallace is on a single monitor, that is almost impossible to judge without causing an incident. Here is round 2, though, as he gets an immense draft here across the start-finish line. This should be the final lap of the race. So Wallace has to get it done as he tries to pull off the move around the outside of turn 1 on Chris Whitaker. No way through past that FT1 Motorsport car.
You can see the lights at the end of the tunnel, and Whitaker. Of course, you can get the run coming out of the chicane, going across the start-finish line. So, will Wallace just wait until that chance, because he doesn't want to repeat of the last lap where he seemed to just compromise his exit from the bus stop by going for a move around the outside there, but he is even close this time. He was 0.28 behind coming onto the oval on the last lap. I'll keep an eye out on what the gap is. It's about 0.4 actually. Oh, that's a really good exit for him. And yeah, the gap is even closer this time. They're closing in on the GTEs and the GT3s ahead as well. This might just be a slipstream for Whitaker on the run to the line. They could play an important part. As to the outside now goes Justin Wallace. This is the battle for second place overall. Second place in the GTE standings. They are neck and neck going into the bus stop. And this time Wallace gets a better turn in. Still not perfect, but this is going to be a fantastic run to the line now.
So we'll keep one eye on that and another eye on your leader, Stephen Lattimore. So for the moment, Wallace has an immense run here across the start-finish line. Lattimore will win round 5 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development Series from Daytona. A dazzling victory for Lattimore, but it's going to be a drag race to the line between Wallace and Whitaker. And look at that. It is a race on Oz 1-2 as Wallace snatches that second position from Chris Whitaker on the final lap of the race there. And what a pass from Justin Wallace. He timed it perfectly. They finish in your top 3. Fireworks, as you can see in the background and you can hear here at Daytona. And we look to your GT3s. It is Matt Allison who takes victory for round 5 here of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development Series. He's followed by Scott Gamble in the second position. And Robert Crisdale will cross the line ahead of Damon Mulqueen and claim that final podium position. Sam, what a finish. We waited 90 minutes for it, and those 3 couldn't be separated for an hour and a half.
So evenly matched the top of that GTE field. If anything, it was the strategy from Stephen Lattimore which just worked out for him. Perhaps that was the difference between him, Wallace and Whitaker, but Wallace and Whitaker were identical. 4/100ths of a second after 90 minutes of racing. And remember, Wallace was behind for 40 minutes going into that last lap. It doesn't matter though, all of that. It just matters where you are on across the checkered flag. And he was ahead, crucially. And Justin Wallace, converts that 1-2 for a race on Oz. Also, of course, shout out to Matt Allison. Fantastic drive there, beating Scott Gamble.
A dazzling victory for Lattimore, and even more superb for Matt Allison. Another race victory for your GT3s. And yet again, he's just driven, I mean, splendidly, hasn't he? Has Matt Allison here, Sam. And he'll certainly be celebrating that for another week before we head to Okayama in 7 days' time. It just gets you on this rhythm and this confidence. And that's definitely what you need as a driver in sim racing.
Yeah, and that BMW should have been the weakest car around this circuit. So if he can win here, where can't he win? You know, this place, along with probably Monza and Le Mans, are the worst tracks for the BMW, and yet he still took a race victory in it. It wasn't easy by any means, but across the line, I think he had about 10 seconds to spare over Scott Gamble, and he's well and truly deserved that race win. So really positive for his championship. I'm not quite sure what the championship standings are, but well, if he's not in the lead of the championship at the end of today, I would be very surprised.
So 13 cars on the lead lap. We will look at your race results in just a moment's time, and we'll have a look at them now. So let's take a look at your final race results for round 5 of the Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League. It is Stephen Lattimore who takes overall victory in your GTEs. He was in a nice little battle between Justin Wallace and Chris Whitaker for that entirety, for the entirety of the event there for the 19 minutes. So 6 seconds separating your top three. Wallace ended up etching ahead of Whitaker there, as we saw on the final lap, a drag race to the line, and they were separated by less than 0.04 of a second. What a close lap between those three. Kenneth Latta just edged ahead of Nathan Anderson towards the end of that event, and those drivers finished in 4th and 5th, respectively. Latta held on to that in the closing stages, and I was getting quite worried watching the timing screens. Nathan Anderson could have easily popped in ahead had he had another lap play. The rest of the GTE finishes are on screen. Some notable names: Adam Gardner, Chris Pellet ended up in 6th and 7th. Stephen Bartholomew, Benjamin Faulkner, and Wayne Hewitt rounded out your top 10. It was a good race for Paul Wood as well. Matt Gallo, David Clements ended up in 12th and 13th. And we have a few drivers down the order who were passed by your GT3s who struggled for pace, but 13 drivers ended up finishing on the lead. Let's flick over now to your GT3s. It was Matt Allison who took overall victory for your GT3 class. Scott Gamble followed closely behind. Matt Allison is on a brilliant run of form. And it was interesting that he ended up beating Scott Gamble to the line because Gamble led for most of the event. Once it came strategy time, though, Allison had one hand on the trophy after the pit stop phase and put the second one on just a few minutes to go as he crossed the checkered flag, across the finish line to receive the checkered flag. Robert Crisdale ended up rounding out the podium. Damon Mulqueen in the 4th position. That was Grant Matterford, who had a quiet event, but ended up in your top 5. And the rest of the order is on screen. We know BJ Kennedy involved in a couple of incidents. Chris Uding drove well, though, and he ended up down in your 8th position for your GT3s. And then some other drivers ended up a couple of laps behind overall winner, Stephen Lattimore. You can see, of course, as well, Sal Galenti had an incident, and he should have been up there in your top 3 for your GT3s. How would his race have panned out had he not been involved in the incident at turn number 1? So those are your race results. Sam, we will speak to race winner Stephen Lattimore first, and I will hand it to you to congratulate Stephen on brilliant race victory for your GTEs.
Yes, congratulations, Stephen. It looked like a tough race for you against Justin and Chris. Did you have confidence that your strategy was going to work out, because you were trailing going into that second pit stop, but in the end, that second pit stop was absolutely superb, and you ended up with a 5-second lead?
Yeah, thanks, fellas. Yeah, me and Justin, once we saw Chris go in, me and Justin was just working together, pulling the lap times, trying to open up the gap even bigger. A little spray of juice at the first and do tyres, got out there, punched out, caught up to the back of Chris. Sadly, Justin dropped off me. But then Chris came in, and it seemed like he was just struggling with his tyres. And yeah, it was just take it easy from after the second pit stop. But Justin done awesome to get Chris on the last lap and make race on Oz 1-2. As well as Matt Allison over in GT3s, dominating the win over there.
Yeah, it was a great day for your team. How was the lapping of the cars? Because we saw the GT3s and the GTEs today were quite evenly matched. Was it easy to lap them?
Majority of the guys are really easy. They let you know what's happening, and they get out of your way. I try to give them a flash of the lights because I don't communicate during the race, unless it's with my own team. But yeah, they were really easy this week. Nice big wide track. They know where we have the advantage and where they don't. So they just make it nice and easy for us.
And next week we head to Okayama for a more conventional race format rather than the endurance. Big reverse grid, of course, for that race as well. What are your aims for those 2 results?
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about Oki. But I thought it was Lime Rock, but I'm definitely more happy it's Oki. um, Hopefully from last week, good first race. Second race didn't go according to plan, but you get carnage in front of you. You can't do anything about it. Hopefully this time around, everyone's a little bit more sensible, a little bit more patient in the second race, and yeah, we all get through it nice and cleanly.
Oh, I certainly wish you the best of luck for that one, Stephen. And is there anyone you'd like to thank?
All the boys over at Race on Oz who took part tonight, Ben, Ken, they had top 10 results in the GD so they done awesome. Justin and Matt, of course, for getting on the podium. Just Matt taking the win in GD3. And Alex, who also came 11th, I think, at the end. Quite a good result for him in GDE. And Hayden over on the broadcast, who was just watching the whole time.
Thanks, Stephen. And we'll hope to see you next week.
Thanks, fellas. See you later.
So that was Stephen Lattimore there. And next up, we'll have a chat with Matt Allison, our GT3 race winner. And Matt, at times today, it didn't look like you were necessarily going to win, running in kind of third and fourth positions in the early stages. But your strategy worked perfectly. And in the end, you had a nice, comfortable winning margin.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. No, it was a bit of fun at the start there. Sal and Robert and Damon were all duffing each other up and letting Scott get away, so it was a bit interesting. And at one point, I tagged Sal in the back, coming out of the infield onto the oval, and just had to address so that there was not going to be any penalty. But yeah, was lucky enough to tag on to a couple of GTEs after I got past Sal and Robert, and they dragged me up to about 2 seconds within Scott, and yeah, then the strategy was just perfect.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, it worked absolutely perfectly for you. Did you know that you're going to take that strategy before the starts of the race, or did you change it when as the race went on?
No, I had a bit of an idea that I was going to do that. I remember seeing a strategy very similar used in Spa in round one, and I thought getting fresh tyres with low fuel, I'd just be able to pump out a good couple of fast laps, and was able to do a 43.1 there at one point, which I thought, yeah, this is it. So yeah, and then came in for the tyres, came in for the fuel when I needed it, and yeah, it came out. And I was surprised. I was so far ahead of Scotty in the end, because I swore we were going to have a ding dong battle there towards the end.
Next week we head to Okayama, a circuit that the BMW should be really good round. I would have thought a few big braking points, some tight twisty corners. Considering that you won here at Daytona in the BMW's worst track, you must be feeling very confident going into Okayama.
And my worst track as well. I can't stand turn one. I always get it wrong coming into turn one. So I was a bit cautious tonight. But yeah, coming into Okayama, it's one of my favourites. So with the Beamer, should be up there again. Hope.
Yeah, well, I certainly wish you the best of luck for that one, Matt. And before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Harvey Bay Autoglass and Ian, and also the Race on Oz sponsors, Selby Acoustics, Gamesmen, Turtle Beats, Ignition Controls, Pageant, and Hype.
For sure. And let's also, as we said, thanks Century Batteries Lismore, RMS Race Management Service. You can visit them at rms55.com.au. That was Matt Allison, your winner in the GT3s. Congrats again, Matt. Brilliant work. Another race victory for yourself. And we'll hopefully see you next round at Okayama around the Japanese tarmac, around the challenge that is that Okayama International Circuit. Now, final comment, Sam, before we leave, because there are some big events coming up. Most notably, actually, in 10 minutes' time, the Wimbledon final and Formula One from Silverstone. But for us, next week, we head to Okayama, as I was just saying, and that is the challenge that will present our Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League Series drivers.
Yes, and we've now been exposed to both formats, the two 20-minute races and also the endurance races. And, well, they're both very good, both fantastic meetings were so far broadcast on Apex Racing TV. And personally, yeah, like I said earlier on, I really like Okayama and those sprint races, particularly the big reverse grid for race 2. That's going to be interesting through that first half a lap or so. So you certainly do not want to miss it. Of course, tomorrow, another big event. We've got the World GT starting again, round 1 of that championship, season 7, I believe, of that series. So that will be awesome to watch. Certainly recommend that one. And of course, for all you Aussies, in terms of the time splits, for which kind of suit you guys, we've got the IMSA officials. We've got the official IMSA series split at, I believe, 10:45 GMT on Tuesday. So certainly do recommend checking that one out. And yeah, we've got plenty of other series, of course, on Apex Racing TV. The BSR leagues, of course, the Masters on Monday and Tuesday nights. The BSR TC on a Thursday night as well. And we've also got the ILMS, the iRacing Le Mans series as well, on Friday evening as well. So plenty to tune into on Apex Racing TV in the coming week.
Most certainly. And you can catch it all on Apex Racing TV, as Sam has just said. The next race, like we said, for our Aussie Mixed and Fixed GT Development League will be in a week's time on the 21st of July. And that will be around the Okayama International Circuit, hosting round 6 of the series. It will be on your beloved Apex Racing TV. Thanks to all you viewers for joining us for today's broadcast, by the way. We really appreciate it. And you have caught myself, Jonathan Simon, Sam Fitzpatrick, alongside me in the commentary booth, along with our ever-beloved, handsome Scott Newton on production. You have seen an Apex Racing TV presentation, and we will say so long from Daytona and hope you enjoyed the thrilling finish this 19-minute endurance race.